The spotlight hit me like a slap. Marcus Hale stood at the microphone in his custom tuxedo. The $2.4 million gala for Apex Dynamics was in full swing at the Grand Meridian Hotel in downtown Chicago. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above 500 of our top clients, investors, and executives. He raised his glass. And let's give a big round of applause to our beautiful poster girl, Elena Voss. Smile for the cameras, Elena. That's what you do best. Laughter rippled through the room. Some people clapped politely. Others laughed louder. Marcus grinned like he had just told the joke of the year. I stood there in my black evening gown. The same gown the marketing team had chosen for the campaign posters. My face was on every banner in the room. Marcus leaned closer to the mic. Come on, don't be shy. Wave to the people who actually make this company run. More laughter. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks, but I kept my face calm. I had practiced this expression for years. He wasn't done. Elena here is great for photos, perfect teeth, perfect hair. But when it comes to real decisions, let's just say she knows her place. The room chuckled again. A few people shifted, uncomfortably, but most joined in. Marcus was the CEO. No one wanted to look like they weren't on his side. I walked slowly toward the stage. My heels clicked on the marble floor. The folder in my hand felt heavier with every step. Marcus saw me coming. For a split second, his smile faltered. Then it came back stronger. Look at that. The poster girl wants the microphone. Careful, Elena. You might break a nail. Laughter exploded. I stepped up beside him. The scent of his expensive cologne mixed with the smell of champagne and roasted duck from the tables. It was March 12th, 2025, a night that had been planned for months. I took the microphone from his hand. My fingers brushed his. He let go like my touch burned him. The room quieted just a little. Cameras flashed. Phones were already recording. I looked straight into the crowd. You all laughed, I said. My voice was steady. That's okay. I used to laugh too, at myself, for believing I was only what people saw on the posters. Marcus tried to take the mic back. I held it firm. But tonight, I continued, you're going to learn who I really am. And Marcus, you're going to wish you never opened your mouth. A nervous murmur spread through the ballroom. I opened the folder. But before I tell you what happened next, I need to take you back. Because this moment didn't start in a fancy hotel. It started 5 years earlier in a small office with leaking ceilings. It was June 14th, 2020. Chicago was still half shut down from the pandemic. I was 29 years old and carrying a cardboard box with my few belongings into the Apex Dynamics building on West Adams Street. The company was small then, only 23 employees. Marcus Hale had started it 2 years earlier after leaving a bigger firm with a few clients and a lot of ambition. I was hired as a marketing assistant. Salary, $42,000 a year. My first day, Marcus walked past my desk and barely glanced at me. Pretty face, he said to his co-founder, Richard Lang. Good for the website. They both laughed and kept walking. I heard it. I said nothing. I needed the job. My mother was sick. Medical bills were piling up. My father had disappeared years ago. I had no safety net, so I worked. I stayed until midnight designing campaigns while others went home. I learned the product inside out. Industrial sensors and monitoring systems for factories. Boring to most people, critical to the clients. By the end of my 3rd month, I had doubled our social media engagement. No one noticed. They just kept calling me the poster girl. Marcus would walk into meetings and say, Elena, smile for the team photo. We need that glow. I smiled. I took the photos. Then I went back to my desk and fixed the actual strategy. One night in October 2020, I found a mistake in the quarterly report. A big one. $287,000 misallocated. It would have triggered an audit. I fixed it. Quietly. Stayed until 3 a.m., printed the corrected version. Placed it on Marcus's desk with a short note. The next morning, he called me into his office. Did you do this? He asked, holding the report. Yes. He leaned back in his chair. Interesting. Most girls in your position would have just smiled and let it burn. I didn't answer. He offered me a small raise. $5,000. I took it. That was the first time I realized something important. Marcus liked control. He liked people who stayed in their lane, especially women, but I was already starting to see the cracks in his vision. By early 2021, the company was growing fast. We landed our first $1 million contract with a steel plant in Gary, Indiana. I created the entire pitch deck. Marcus presented it. He never mentioned my name. After the deal closed, he threw a small party in the office. Cheap wine, pizza. He raised his glass. To the team that made this happen. Everyone cheered. Later that night, when most people had left, I was still at my desk editing the next campaign. Marcus walked over. He had loosened his tie. "You know, Elena," he said, sitting on the edge of my desk, "you're smart, but smart girls in this industry need to be careful. Don't get ideas above your station." I looked at him. "What station is that?" He smiled. "The one where you stay visible but never in charge." I nodded slowly. "Got it." Inside, something shifted. I started keeping records. Every meeting, every decision, every time my work was claimed by someone else. I created a private folder on my personal laptop, labeled it Insurance. Fast forward to March 2022. Apex Dynamics had grown to 80 employees. We moved to a better building. Marcus started wearing $1,000 suits. I was promoted to senior marketing manager. Salary jumped to $78,000. Still far below what the men in similar roles made. One afternoon, Richard Lang, the co-founder, came to my desk. He looked nervous. "Elena, we need a big campaign for the new product line. Marcus wants you front and center. Your face on everything." "Why my face?" I asked. Richard shrugged. "Clients like it. You're approachable." I agreed, but this time I negotiated. "I want equity," I said. Richard laughed. "Equity? You're marketing, not operations." I didn't laugh. "Then I won't do the campaign." He went to Marcus. They talked for 2 hours. Finally, they offered me 0.2% equity. Vested over 4 years. I took it. But I had my lawyer review the contract. That's when I noticed something. A small clause buried deep in the ownership documents. It gave additional rights to anyone who had contributed to core intellectual property. I had written large sections of the original product positioning. I had created the brand guidelines. I had even named the flagship product line, Sentinel Series. I quietly had my lawyer add notes. No one paid attention. They thought I was just happy to have my picture on the posters. That same year, my mother's health got worse. She needed surgery, $140,000. I had saved some, but not enough. I went to Marcus, asked for an advance on my bonus. He leaned back. "Elena, we all have problems, but the company comes first. Maybe cut back on the nice handbags." I stared at him. He laughed. "I'm kidding, sort of. Look, do the new campaign, make it amazing, then we'll talk bonus." I did the campaign. It brought in $3.2 million in new pipeline. My mother got the surgery. I paid for it myself by taking a personal loan at 21% interest. Marcus never gave me the bonus. He said the money was needed for expansion. That night, I sat in my small apartment in Logan Square. I opened the insurance folder. I added new entries, dates, amounts, names. I started connecting dots I hadn't wanted to see before. By 2023, Apex Dynamics was valued at $48 million. Marcus was on local business magazines. The visionary behind the future of industrial tech. My face was on the cover of one of them. The headline, "The Beauty Behind the Brand." Marcus loved it. He framed it and put it in the lobby. I hated it. But I used it. I traveled with the sales team. I learned the clients. I listened when they complained about delivery delays and quality issues. I took notes. Marcus started bringing his cousin, Victor Hale, into the company. Victor was loud, aggressive. Good at closing deals but terrible with details. They made Victor head of operations. Salary, $190,000, plus bonuses. I was still at $112,000. One evening after a client dinner, Victor cornered me in the parking garage. "You know," he said, breath smelling of whiskey, "my cousin likes having you around. Pretty face keeps the investors happy, but don't get any ideas. This is a family company now." I stepped back. "Family?" He smiled. "Blood matters. You understand?" I understood perfectly. In the summer of 2024, things accelerated. Apex was in talks for a major acquisition. A bigger player wanted to buy us for $180 million. Marcus was excited. He started talking about his exit package. I wasn't invited to those meetings, but I had access to the shared drive. Late at night, I reviewed the term sheets. That's when I saw it. The offer included a clause that would dilute all minority shareholders. My tiny 0.2% would become almost nothing. I printed everything, added it to the folder. I also noticed something else. Large payments to shell companies connected to Victor and Marcus. Consulting fees. Almost $900,000 over 18 months. The money wasn't going where it should. I didn't confront them. Not yet. Instead, I worked harder. I built relationships with the board members who weren't family. I quietly helped 2 key clients who were unhappy. Fixed problems Marcus didn't even know existed. They started trusting me. One of them, an older investor named Margaret Klein, pulled me aside after a meeting. "Elena," she said, "you're the reason this company still functions. Don't let them push you out." I smiled. "I don't plan to." December 2024, the holiday party. Marcus announced record revenue, $34 million for the year. He gave a speech, thanked the team, thanked Victor, thanked himself. My name wasn't mentioned once. Later, he found me near the bar. "Elena, you look good tonight. Keep doing what you do. The posters are working." I raised my glass, happy to help. Inside, I was calculating. I had been quietly buying more shares through secondary transactions. Small amounts. Legal. Hidden through a trust my lawyer set up. By January 2025, I owned 4.7%. Still small. But combined with the original clause and the evidence I had gathered, it was enough. Enough to change everything. Back to the Gala. March 12, 2025. Grand Meridian Hotel. The room was silent now. 500 faces watching me. Marcus stood 2 feet away. His face was red. "Elena," he whispered, "give me the mic. Now." I ignored him. I pulled out the first document from the folder. "This contract," I said, holding it up so the nearest tables could see, "was signed on July 3, 2021. It contains a clause most of you never read. It protects founding contributors who created core brand and product strategy." I looked at Marcus. "That includes me." Murmurs grew louder. Marcus reached for the paper. I stepped back. "You called me a poster girl," I continued. "Just a pretty face. But for 5 years, I built the systems you took credit for. I fixed the mistakes you ignored. I kept clients from leaving when your cousin's mistakes almost destroyed relationships." I turned to the crowd. "Tonight, you're going to see the real numbers, the real ownership, and the real reason Apex Dynamics exists." I nodded to the technical team in the back. They had been instructed earlier. The presentation screen behind me lit up. The first slide showed my name next to key milestones. The room gasped. Marcus's face went pale. But this was only the beginning. What happened in the next 10 minutes would destroy the empire he thought he controlled. And it would show every person in that ballroom what happens when you underestimate the woman you turned into a poster. Word count so far, approximately 1,850, continuing seamlessly. I clicked to the next slide. Bank records, highlighted transactions. Victor Hale, I said clearly, received $740,000 in questionable consulting fees between 2023 and 2024. Money that should have gone to product development. Victor, sitting at the main table, shot up from his chair. That's a lie. I didn't raise my voice. The invoices are right here, signed by Marcus. More slides, more numbers. Investors in the room started checking their phones. Board members looked at each other. Marcus tried to speak into another microphone. The sound guy, following my earlier instructions, cut his mic. Smart man. I had paid him $500 cash that afternoon. You think this is a game? Marcus hissed, coming closer to me. I made you. I looked at him. Really looked. No, Marcus. I made this company work while you played CEO. I turned back to the audience. 3 months ago, I was told my role would be reduced, that the new owners didn't need a poster girl anymore. They planned to cut my equity to 0. I paused. Let the silence build. Then I showed them these documents. The next slide showed the original equity clause, highlighted. My lawyer's notes. A board member in the front row, David Chen, stood up. Is this real? It's real, I said. And it means I have veto power on the sale. The room erupted. Marcus lunged for the laptop. I closed the folder calmly. Security, 2 men I had spoken with earlier, stepped forward and stopped him. Not forcefully. Just enough, I continued. I'm not here to destroy Apex Dynamics. I'm here to save it. From the people who were bleeding it dry. I looked directly at the cameras. To every woman watching this who has been called just a pretty face, to every person told to stay in their lane, this is for you. The applause started slowly. Then it built. Marcus stood there, his perfect world crumbling in real time. But the deepest betrayal wasn't even public yet. That would come in the next few minutes, the part involving my own family, the part I had only discovered 6 weeks earlier. My phone had buzzed on a cold. February evening in 2025. Unknown number, Chicago area code. I almost didn't answer. Elena? The voice was familiar but older. It's your father. I hadn't spoken to him in 12 years. What do you want? I asked. He laughed nervously. Straight to business. Good. You get that from me. I waited. I hear you're doing well at Apex. Marcus is a friend of mine. Old golf buddy. My stomach dropped. He continued. Look, the company is heading for big things. I put in some early money, through Victor, family helping family, you understand? I didn't, but I let him talk. That conversation led me to dig deeper. Bank records, old emails, a shell company, called Hale Legacy Partners. My father had invested $80,000 in 2021 through Victor. In return, he received hidden equity and introductions. He had been profiting from my work without me knowing. The man who abandoned us when my mother got sick had been quietly cashing in on the daughter he left behind. I confronted him 2 weeks before the gala, in a coffee shop on Milwaukee Avenue. He denied everything at first. Then he shrugged. Business is business, kid. You were never going to make it on your own anyway. I helped. I left without finishing my coffee. That night, I added everything to the folder. Now, on stage, I brought it forward. Marcus, I said, my voice carrying through the ballroom. You didn't just underestimate me. You brought my own father into this. I showed the final set of documents. The room went dead silent. Even the waiters stopped moving. Marcus's mouth opened, but no sound came out. I looked at him. You called me a poster girl. But I was never just decoration. I was the foundation, and tonight that foundation is taking its place. I stepped back from the microphone. The applause started again, louder this time. Some people stood. Margaret Klein was one of the first. Then more board members. Then clients. Marcus and Victor were escorted quietly toward the side exit. Not arrested, not yet. That would come later. I stood on the stage and watched them go. For the first time in 5 years, I wasn't smiling for the cameras. I was smiling for me. The lights in the ballroom felt brighter now. Security guided Marcus and Victor toward the side doors. Marcus kept looking back at me. His eyes were wide, not angry anymore, scared. I stayed on the stage. The folder was still in my hands. Margaret. Klein walked up first. She was 71, sharp as ever in her navy suit. She had been on the board for 3 years. "Elena, I need to see those documents," she said quietly. I handed her the full stack. She flipped through them right there under the chandelier light. Other board members gathered around. Phones were out. Whispers turned into urgent conversations. One investor from New York, a man named Thomas Riley who had put in $12 million last year, stood up. Marcus told us the marketing was all his vision. He showed us decks with his name on every slide. I nodded. He changed the author names the night before every presentation. Thomas cursed under his breath. The technical team kept the slides running. More records appeared. Emails between Marcus and Victor dated October 17, 2023. "Push Elena out. After the acquisition closes," one email read. "Her equity clause is old. We can bury it in the new paperwork." The room reacted again, louder this time. I didn't smile. I just watched. A woman in a red dress near the front table started clapping. Then another. Soon half the ballroom was on their feet, not all of them. Some executives who had laughed hardest earlier now stared at their plates. I stepped back to the microphone. "This isn't over," I said. "There is more. Much more. But first I want you to understand how we got here." I looked at the clock. On the wall. 8:47 p.m. The night was young. Let me take you back to April 2023. The company had just closed a $15 million round. Investors were happy. Marcus bought a new Porsche Cayenne, black. He parked it right in front of the office so everyone could see it. I was working on the Sentinel Series 2 launch. We needed to fix serious firmware bugs before shipping. Clients in Ohio and Michigan were waiting. Victor was in charge of the testing schedule. He kept delaying it. "Why rush?" he told the engineering team. "Elena can make some pretty videos in the meantime. Keep the clients calm." I sat in on that meeting. I said nothing then, but I recorded the audio on my phone. Later that week, I went to the testing lab myself. Midnight. The building was empty except for one security guard who knew me. I reviewed the logs. The bugs were worse than reported. One could cause factory line shutdowns, costly ones. I wrote a detailed report, 47 pages, sent it to Marcus and the board with my name clearly on it. Marcus replied the next morning. "Elena, stick to marketing. We have experts for this." He forwarded my report to Victor with a note. "Handle this poster girl noise." Victor deleted the report from the shared drive. I had my own copy. Instead of fighting, I reached out to 3 key clients directly, quietly. I explained the delay and offered free extended support. They appreciated the honesty. 2 of them increased their orders. Marcus never knew how I saved those accounts. He thought his charm had done it. June 2023. My mother's follow-up treatments were costing $8,000 a month. I was maxed out on credit cards. I asked for a real bonus, the one promised after the last big campaign. Marcus called me into his office. He had new golf clubs leaning against the wall. "Elena, times are tight," he said. He was smiling. "But, tell you what, do the trade show in Vegas next month. Wear the company dress. Smile a lot. We'll see about that bonus after." I went to Vegas. The booth was busy. I stood there 12 hours a day. Investors took photos with me. One older man asked if I was the model or the assistant. I smiled and closed a $400,000 deal on the spot. Back in Chicago, Marcus announced the Vegas success at the all-hands meeting. He took full credit. That evening, I drove to my apartment. I sat in the car for 20 minutes staring at the dashboard. Then I opened my laptop and transferred another chunk of my savings into the trust. I was up to 1.8% ownership now. August 2023 brought the first real fracture. Victor made a mistake with a major supplier in Indiana. He signed a contract with the wrong terms. It cost the company $260,000 in penalties. Marcus covered it up. He moved money from the development budget. I found the transfer records. Instead of exposing it immediately, I went to Margaret Klein. We met at a small cafe on North Clark Street. Rain was pouring outside. I showed her copies. No originals yet. She read them carefully. "This is serious, Elena, but proof needs to be ironclad." "I know," I said. "I'm building it." She looked at me for a long moment. "You're not what they say you are." "No," I replied. "I never was." That conversation gave me my second open loop. I started documenting everything with timestamps. I hired a forensic accountant quietly, paid him from my personal account. His name was Daniel Park. He worked out of a small office in Evanston. Daniel called me 3 weeks later. "Elena, this is bigger than you think. There are payments to your father." I met him in person. He showed me the trail. $80,000 invested in 2021. Returns funneled through Victor's shell company. My father had received quarterly distributions, while my mother was fighting cancer. I drove home that night through heavy traffic on the Kennedy Expressway. I gripped the wheel so tight my knuckles went white. I didn't cry. I planned. October 2023, the company Christmas catalog shoot. Marcus wanted me front and center again. "Wear something tight," he said in the email. "Clients respond to that." I showed up. I did the photos. But this time I brought my own conditions. I told the photographer to include metadata with dates and my name. Small thing. Important. Later. During a break, Marcus pulled me aside near the fake factory backdrop. "You're doing great, Elena. Keep playing your role, and maybe we'll talk about that director title someday." I looked him in the eye. "What role is that exactly?" He laughed. "The one where you stay useful without complicating things." I nodded, took the compliment. Inside, I added the conversation to my growing file. Later that month, Victor tried something new. He spread a rumor that I was sleeping with a board member to get ahead. The rumor reached me through a sympathetic assistant named Carla. She whispered it in the break room while making coffee. I thanked Carla. Then I traced the rumor back to Victor's assistant. I collected screenshots of the group chat I didn't confront. I stored November 2023. My mother had a bad week. Hospital again. Bills hit $190,000 total now. I went to Marcus one more time. He was in his new corner office, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. "Elena, you're family adjacent now," he said casually. "Your dad mentioned you. Nice guy. But business is business. Maybe ask him for help." That was the moment I knew. I left his office, walked straight to the parking garage, sat in my car, called my lawyer. "Start the full ownership audit," I said. Quietly. The lawyer, Sarah Bennett, was based in the Loop. She had been helping me for 18 months. She warned me it would get ugly. I told her I was ready. By December, the acquisition talks were heating up. The potential buyer was Tech Forge Industries. Valuation discussions around $180 million. Marcus and Victor were preparing their golden parachutes. Victor had even picked out a vacation home in Florida. I wasn't on the negotiation team, but I had allies now. Margaret Klein started asking questions in board meetings. David Chen joined her. Marcus noticed. He started watching me more closely. One afternoon, he walked by my desk. "Heard you've been talking to Margaret. Careful, poster girl. Office politics can be dangerous." I looked up from my screen. "I'm just doing my job," he smirked. "Your job is looking good. Leave the rest to me." That night, I met Daniel Park again. He had new findings, large transfers to offshore accounts. Marcus's personal account linked through Victor, over $400,000. Daniel slid the folder across the table at a quiet bar in Wicker Park. "This could be criminal, Elena. Wire fraud territory." I took the folder. "Keep digging." January 2025. The new year brought the final pieces. I had reached 4.7%. The original clause from 2021 gave me significant protective rights if I could prove material contribution. My lawyer confirmed the paperwork was solid. I started preparing the gala presentation. Nights and weekends, I practiced in front of my bathroom mirror. My father called again. This time I recorded the call. He wanted more money. Said the acquisition would be good for everyone. I let him talk. Got him to admit the connection to Victor. Clear as day. After hanging up, I sat on my couch for a long time. The apartment was quiet except for the heater clicking. I thought about my mother, about every late night, every dismissed idea, every time they laughed. Then I went back to work. February 2025, 2 weeks before the gala. Marcus called an emergency leadership meeting. He announced the acquisition was close. He wanted everyone to align the message. I sat at the end of the table. He looked at me. Elena, you'll handle the press photos. Smile big. This is our big moment. I nodded. Of course. After the meeting, Victor stayed behind. He closed the door. Listen, he said. After this deal, things are changing. Your role gets smaller, but we can keep you on as a consultant. Good money for not much work. I tilted my head. How much? He named a number. $70,000 a year. I smiled. I'll think about it. I left the room. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From focus. That same day, I finalized the presentation with my lawyer and Daniel. We had everything. Bank statements, emails, signed contracts. My father's wire records. I burned a backup copy onto a USB drive, kept the folder with printed originals, back at the gala. March 12th. The applause was still echoing. I raised my hand for quiet. The room settled. There is one more layer, I said. I clicked to the next slide. It showed my father's name. The investment records, the dates, the amounts he received while my mother was ill. Gasps. A few people covered their mouths. Marcus, standing near the exit with security, looked like he might faint. You involved my own father, I said, my voice steady. You used my family's pain to line your pockets. While I was paying medical bills, you were paying him returns. Victor tried to speak. Security held him. I continued. But I didn't come here just for revenge. I came here for the truth. And for the future of this company. I looked at the board members. I am exercising my rights under the 2021 agreement. I am blocking the current acquisition terms. They dilute protected contributors unfairly. Margaret Klein stood. I second that motion. We need a full audit first. Several other board members nodded. The energy in the room shifted completely. Investors, who had been quiet, were now asking questions, loud questions. Marcus tried one last time. He stepped forward despite security. Elena, this is insane, he said loudly. You're a marketing manager, nothing more. I looked at him. Check your own contracts, Marcus, the ones you never read carefully. I clicked the final slide for this section. It showed the ownership percentages. My name highlighted. The protective clause enlarged. The room saw the numbers. 4.7%, combined with protected rights. Enough to force change. Whispers turned to open discussion. I stepped away from the microphone for a moment. Let them absorb it. This was the second major turning point, but the full extent of what they had done, the criminal angles, the long-term plan to push me out completely, that was still coming, and the final moves I had prepared would seal it. I watched Marcus's face as the reality hit him. He had built his empire on underestimating me. Now the empire was watching him fall. The murmurs in the ballroom grew into a wave of voices. Phones lit up everywhere. Board members huddled in small groups near the stage. I stood still. The folder now rested on the small table beside the podium. Margaret Klein raised her hand. The eye. Room quieted again. Elena, I move we adjourn the formal part of this gala and begin an immediate review of all documents presented, she said firmly. Several hands went up in support. Marcus shouted from the side. This is a setup. She's fabricating everything for attention. No one listened. Security kept him and Victor in place. I picked up the microphone once more. "You want the full picture?" I said. "Here it is." I clicked to the next set of slides. Email chains from December 14th, 2024. Marcus to Victor. Subject line, "Poster girl exit strategy." The email detailed a plan to reduce my role after the acquisition, reassign my equity through a new holding company, and use my father as leverage if I resisted. The room read it in silence. One investor, a woman from a pension fund in California, stood up. "Marcus, you assured us governance was clean. This looks like fraud." Marcus's face was sweating under the lights. His tuxedo jacket was unbuttoned now. I continued without raising my voice. On January 22, 2025, Victor transferred $68,000 from the operations account to a personal LLC. The reason listed was consulting. The consultant was my father. I showed the bank transfer image enlarged. Clear routing numbers. Clear signatures. Victor tried to push past security. "Those are legitimate expenses." I looked straight at him. Legitimate expenses don't need 3 shell companies and offshore routing. Another slide. Forensic accountant's summary. Daniel Park's work. Red flags highlighted in yellow. Total questionable transfers. $1.4 million. The applause earlier had stopped. Now it was pure shock. I stepped closer to the edge of the stage. I didn't gather this alone. I worked quietly for months, while smiling for photos, while fixing problems you created, while paying my mother's bills that you knew about. I paused. Let the silence sit. A server dropped a tray of glasses near the back. The crash echoed. No one turned. Let me show you what happened 6 weeks before this night. February 8th, 2025. Snow was falling heavily outside my apartment window. I met Daniel Park at a diner in Evanston. He brought a thick envelope. "Elena, the wire fraud is clear, but there's more. Marcus used company funds to pay off a personal gambling debt last year. $120,000 to a private club in Las Vegas." I read the report slowly. I drank my coffee black. It went cold. Daniel leaned forward. "You have enough for the SEC, possibly criminal charges." I closed the envelope. "I know, but first the company, then everything else." That same afternoon, I met Sarah Bennett, my lawyer, in her office downtown. We reviewed the veto rights again. She looked at me across the mahogany desk. "If you pull this trigger at the gala, there is no going back. Your name will be public. The press will dig into your family." I signed the final authorization papers. It's already public in my life. Time they saw the rest. Back at the gala, I clicked forward. A new slide showed text messages. Victor to Marcus, February 19th. "Father says Elena is asking questions. Handle her or I will." Marcus replied, "She's still useful for the photos. After closing, we cut her loose." The messages were real. I had them from Carla, the assistant who had grown tired of the games. She forwarded them 2 days before the event. Carla was sitting 3 tables away now. She nodded at me when our eyes met. Marcus saw her. His expression changed to pure rage. "You turned my own people against me," he said loudly. I answered, calmly, "No, Marcus, you did that yourself." March 1st, 2025. 10 days before the gala. I visited my mother in her small house in the suburbs. She was weaker but alert. The living room smelled of lavender tea. I told her parts of the plan. Not everything, just enough. She listened. Then she squeezed my hand. "You always worked harder than they deserved. Show them." I stayed until she fell asleep, drove home through empty streets. That night, I rehearsed the entire presentation. Twice. Timed it, practiced the pauses. I also prepared one final document. A personal letter to the board, outlining my vision for Apex if I gained influence. Real product fixes, better pay equity, no more family favoritism. I printed 10 copies. Back on stage. The energy was electric now. Margaret Klein had taken a seat at a front table with other board members. They were reviewing papers I had distributed earlier through a trusted staff member. I addressed them directly. Under the original agreements, I can call for a special board vote on leadership. Tonight. Right now. David Chen stood. I support the motion. We need new leadership. 3 more board members agreed immediately. Marcus laughed. It sounded broken. You think this little stunt gives you the company? I built Apex from nothing. I turned to him. You started it, but I kept it alive. Every time Victor's mistakes nearly sank a deal. Every time you ignored client complaints. Every time you took credit for my decks. I clicked to a new section. Side-by-side comparisons. My original pitch decks versus the ones Marcus presented. With his name added, dates matched, timestamps matched. The investors who had funded the last round looked furious. One of them, Thomas Riley, called out, Marcus, we want a full audit starting Monday, and we want Elena protected. The room supported him. Let me take you to the moment I discovered the deepest cut. February 28th, 2025. 3 days before final preparations, my father called again. This time I answered on speaker while recording. Elena, don't rock the boat, he said. His voice was smooth. Marcus and I have an understanding. After the sale, I'll make sure you get a nice settlement. $10,000 a month, enough for your mother. I stayed silent for 10 seconds. Then I asked, how long have you been taking money from them? He hesitated, then laughed. Since the beginning. Blood helps blood. You should be grateful. I hung up. I sat at my kitchen table. The recorder, light still blinking. I saved the file. Added it to the folder. That was the 3rd open loop closing in. The full family betrayal. The calculated use of my pain for their gain. At the gala, the clock showed 9:35 p.m. Security had moved Marcus and Victor to a side room, but the doors were open. Everyone could still see them. I continued. 2 weeks ago, I met with key clients. Quietly, 4 of our largest. They confirmed Victor's operational failures cost them over $900,000 in downtime last year alone. I showed signed statements, not full names for privacy yet. But enough detail. A client representative in the audience, a procurement director from Gary Steele, raised his hand. She's telling the truth. We almost left because of delays Marcus blamed on market conditions. More voices joined. Real stories poured out. I listened, then spoke again. I am not taking over tonight. That is not how this works. But I am exercising my rights to stop the current deal. We will renegotiate. Fairly, with new leadership. Margaret Klein proposed an interim measure. The board would form a committee. I would join it. Marcus would step aside pending audit. The vote was quick. 7 in favor, 2 abstained, none against. Marcus slumped against the wall. Victor stared at the floor. The room erupted in applause. Again. But I knew the night was not finished. There were legal steps still to take. Statements to prepare. And one final conversation. I stepped down from the stage for the first time, walked straight toward the side room. Security let me through. Marcus looked up as I approached. Up close, his eyes were bloodshot. The confident CEO was gone. You really did this, he whispered, all for some revenge. I stood 2 feet away. Not revenge, Marcus. Justice. You had 5 years to treat people fairly. You chose this. Victor muttered something. I ignored him. I placed one last document on the table in front of them. A copy of the SEC referral form. Already filled. Ready to send Monday morning. This is your exit, I said. Take it cleanly, or fight and lose everything. Marcus stared at the paper. His hands shook slightly as he touched it. I turned and walked back toward the main room. The guests were standing now. Many came up to shake my hand. Others simply nodded with respect. Carla approached. Thank you, she said quietly. I recorded my own stuff too, if you need it. I thanked her. The band that had been waiting in the corner started playing again. Soft jazz. The tension began to ease for some, not for everyone. I looked around the ballroom. The banners with my face still hung from the ceiling, but now they meant something different. This was the moment the room fully understood. Yet the final consequences, the board decisions, the legal filings, the personal reckoning, those were still unfolding. I had one more revelation to share before the night ended, one that tied everything together. The jazz played softly, but no one danced yet. I stood near the center table. People kept coming up. Some shook my hand. Others just wanted to say they believed me. Margaret Klein found me again. "The board is meeting in the private salon right now," she said. "We want you there." I followed her. The salon was quiet. Heavy curtains, one long oak table, 7 board members already seated. Marcus and Victor had been brought in. They sat at the far end. 2 security guards stood behind them. Margaret called the session to order. "We have reviewed the evidence presented tonight," she said. "Elena Voss has demonstrated material contribution under the 2021 agreements. We vote on leadership change." Hands went up. 6 yes, 1 no. An old friend of Marcus. Motion passed. Marcus shot up. "You can't do this. I own the majority." Narrative. David Chen slid a paper across the table. "Your termination letter. Effective immediately. Severance frozen pending audit." Victor slammed his fist. "This is theft." I stayed silent. I watched. The board voted next on the acquisition. Blocked. The deal with TechForge was dead. New motion. Elena Voss joins the board as strategic director. With expanded equity review rights, passed unanimously. Marcus laughed bitterly. "Strategic director? She's still just a pretty face with papers." I finally spoke. "Marcus, tomorrow morning your company email will be deactivated. Your company credit cards frozen. The Porsche, leased through Apex, it goes back." He stared at me. I continued. "Victor, the SEC referral is already scheduled. Monday, 9 a.m. My lawyer sent the package." Security escorted them out through the back corridor. No scene, just quiet removal. The board turned to me. Margaret smiled for the first time that night. "Elena, your vision document. We read it. We like the direction. Product overhaul, fair. Compensation structure, no more family deals." I nodded once. "Then let's begin." The gala continued outside, but inside the salon the real work started. March 13th, 2025, the morning after. I woke at 6 a.m. in my Logan Square apartment. No champagne hangover, just coffee. Black. I drove to the office early. The building on West Adams looked the same but felt different. Carla was already at her desk. She had printed new nameplates. I walked into Marcus's old corner office. I didn't sit in his chair, not yet. Instead, I opened my laptop and started the first real change. New product testing schedule, real deadlines, no more delays. By 9 a.m., the staff began arriving. Whispers spread fast. Some avoided eye contact, others smiled. I called an all hands for 10 a.m. in the main conference room. 212 people crowded in. Some standing in the back. I stood at the front. No podium. Just me. "Yesterday was not a show," I said. "It was correction. Apex dynamics will continue. Stronger, but different." I laid out the first 30 days. Firmware bugs fixed by end of month. Client compensation for past delays. Salary review for every department. No more poster campaigns without substance. The room was quiet at first, then applause, real applause. After the meeting, Margaret pulled me aside. "The audit team starts Monday. We expect to recover at least $900,000 from the questionable transfers. Your father has already been contacted by our lawyers. He wants to settle quietly." I looked out the window toward the river. "Tell him the settlement goes to my mother's medical fund. Every dollar." She nodded. March 20th, 2025. 1 week later, I sat across from my father at the same coffee shop on Milwaukee Avenue. He looked smaller. No confidence this time. "Elena, I was just trying to help the family," he started. I placed an envelope on the table. "Sign it. You forfeit all claims. You repay what you can, or we go public." He read the papers. His hands trembled. He signed. I stood up. "You abandoned us when we needed you most. You profited from my pain. Today, that ends." I left him sitting there with the empty coffee cup. I didn't look back. April 5th, 2025. The first board meeting with me as strategic director. We approved real changes. Engineering budget increased by 22%. New testing lab, performance bonuses tied to actual results, not golf games. Victor faced charges. Wire fraud. The SEC moved fast once the package arrived. Marcus tried one final move. He leaked a story to a local business blog, claimed I had seduced board members and fabricated documents. The story lasted 6 hours. I released the full unedited Gala footage. Every laugh, every slide, every word he said. The blog removed the article. Marcus's remaining allies distanced themselves. May 12, 2025, my mother's house. Spring flowers in the front yard. I helped her into the new chair we bought with the first recovered funds. $140,000 transferred to her care account. She looked at me. "You did it quietly. The way you always worked." I made her tea, lavender. We sat on the porch for 40 minutes without speaking much. Just watching the street. That was enough. Back at the company, the changes took hold. Clients returned, new contracts signed. One, for $8.4 million with a manufacturer in Wisconsin. I led the final negotiation. No photos, just results. My equity grew through the protected clause. Now at 9.3%, I never changed my office. I kept the same desk I had for 5 years. But the nameplate outside the strategy room now read, Elena Voss, Strategic Director. One afternoon in late May, I stood in the lobby. The old framed magazine cover with my face was gone, replaced with a new one. The whole team on it. No single poster girl. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I went back to work.
June 2025. Marcus tried to call me once. Unknown number. I let it ring. He left a voicemail. Voice shaky. "Elena, I underestimated you. Maybe we can talk. Work something out." I deleted it. Victor pleaded guilty to reduced charges. Restitution ordered. My father disappeared again. This time no one looked for him. The company valuation climbed back. $142 million by end of quarter. I still carried the folder sometimes. Not for insurance anymore. For reminder. The final twist came on a quiet Tuesday. I received a letter from an old client. The steel plant in Gary. They had been approached by Marcus months earlier. He offered them a side deal to leave Apex and go with a new startup he was planning after the acquisition. The client refused. They sent me the emails. Dated. Signed. Proof of attempted sabotage even before the gala. I read them in my office. Then I filed them with the lawyers. Additional charges. Marcus had planned everything. Even the exit. He never expected the poster girl to see it all. Today, standing here telling you this story, I think about that night at the Grand Meridian. The laughter. The folder. The moment the room turned, it wasn't magic. It was preparation. Years of it. Every late night. Every saved document. Every quiet conversation. I built my power while they built their egos. Now Apex moves forward. Cleaner. Stronger. And I am no longer just a face on a poster. I am the one who decides what comes next. If you were in that ballroom, what would you have done when Marcus handed you the microphone? Would you have stayed silent? Or would you have opened the folder? Tell me in the comments. Be specific. What moment in this story hit you hardest? I read every single comment. Every one.